This whole project started from watching somebody writing their story during a storytelling group. Storytelling is something we've done since the dawn of time. We've forgotten the art of storytelling. I sat and watched this guy write his story vigorously onto jots of A4 paper, scribbling away, getting everything that he had in his head down on paper. And it blew my mind. It was something that I realised that this story had to be told. Now, I've realised this for a long time, that storytelling is something that I do well. I like to tell stories. I like to listen to stories. So the whole project developed from that one man sharing his story and his willingness to go deep into that story. I'm going to set a scene for how I tell a story, so you can see yourself how you can paint pictures with words. You can listen to my story and quite quickly find out where I came from, who I am, and where I'm going. Throughout this project, we listened to men tell their story. Men who were told, don't talk. Well, give them the right environment and they talk. So I'm going to set the scene. Walking through my high street in Wakefield, West Yorkshire. I'd gone from 20 pints of lager and a bottle of whiskey to 0 in 24 hours. As I'm walking through the high street, I start to get stomach cramps. My body's going into shock. The stomach cramps lead to me messing myself in the middle of the high street. The smell of it makes me vomit all over myself. And as I curl up into a ball, thinking I'm going to die, no, hoping I'm going to die, I began to pee myself. I'm laying on the precinct floor and nobody comes to help. I don't deserve human kindness. I'm just drunk. I brought this on myself. I listen to the group of young men who say they're going to beat up the tramp. The poor old tramp's going to get a right kicking. Then I realise they're talking about me. So I stand up and start to walk the 2 miles home. On my way home, I see a friend from a distance. I think to myself, thank the Lord, somebody's going to give me some help. My friend walks towards me, sees me covered in pee, poo and vomit, and he turns his back on me. I don't deserve human kindness, because I'm just a drunk. I've brought this on myself. It's only when I get home that I realise that somebody else wants me to get better. My wife's waiting for me at the door. She doesn't laugh, she doesn't cry, she doesn't shout, she doesn't scream. She stands at the back door and she strips me naked and cleans me. She pulls me close and whispers in my ear, it's going to be okay. I love you. That single act of kindness is the act of kindness that was going to see me through my rehab. That single act of kindness is the act of kindness I'd wanted since I was 6 years of age. Now guys, quite quickly, that story, you can kind of paint a picture of where my life was. Over the next hour or so, you're going to hear other men's stories. And hopefully you will listen and you will learn and you will understand. And you may cry, you may laugh. And I'm okay with crying, I'm okay with laughter. But please try and listen to them as much as you can. Every man deserves to be heard. Every man deserves to have their story heard. So hopefully you will enjoy what you're about to witness.
Hi everyone, my name is Liam Smith. I've been in service with Changeworld of Kirklees for 3 years, but in reality I've only been fully engaging with the service and attending groups at the Basement Project for 1.5 years, ever since I moved from Dewsbury to Huddersfield. So a bit about my background. I was born to an Irish father and an English mother in 1991. I've got a brother that's 3 years younger than me and a 15-year-old half-sister. My mum and dad went through quite a messy divorce when I was about 10 years old, after which my mum met someone new, gave birth to my half-sister. I went to college, Greenhead College. I went to university in Huddersfield from 2009 to 2012, where I studied biology. I found jobs quite hard to come by though. So in 2013, I decided to train to be an operating department practitioner, which is similar to like a theatre nurse. I graduated top of my class from that with an offer to do a scholarship to do a PhD. But in November 2015, during my last year of studying and training, I broke the 5th metatarsal in my left foot playing five-a-side football. It felt fine at the time, it just blew up the next day. It was agony, to be honest. So I was forced to wear a cast and a walking boot, and I was prescribed 30 milligrams cocodamol for the pain by my GP. So this point is where my life changed. From that very first dose, I felt such overwhelming euphoria and relief. I felt invincible. I never really drank that much, never injected anything, never smoked anything illicit. But at that moment, I could see why people would. In hindsight, I wish I'd just put up with the pain. That first tablet, that first prescription, destroyed my life and brought me to the brink. I very quickly took more and more as my tolerance increased to try and chase that first feeling of happiness. My GP quickly realised I was abusing the medication. I was ordering more and more and more, and they stopped it abruptly. So by then it was too late. I bought it online, I begged it from friends that were prescribed it, grandmas that were prescribed it, and other family members, until about June 2016, I'd progressed on to stronger stuff, dihydrocodeine, tramadol, etc. at really high doses because cocodamol wasn't doing anything for me. So in June 2016, to celebrate me graduating from my course, I went travelling for 3 to 4 months around Southeast Asia. We went to Hong Kong, India, Kashmir, etc. I went with my girlfriend at the time and another couple who we were friends with. So far, I thought anyway, I'd managed to keep this a secret, my codeine use, my tablet use, from everybody. So I packed my suitcase for the 3-month trip with enough tablets, thinking, oh, this will last me at least 3 months and maybe some more. It lasted me 2 weeks. My friends, my girlfriend saw just how bad it had become. I was stranded in countries thousands of miles away from home, withdrawing, in the heat of India, in the heat of Nepal, just going through it cold turkey style. I trawled through alleyways at night. I got on the back of mopeds with strange men, just to try and find a pharmacist or a chemist or somebody who could speak enough English that I could beg them to help me. When I returned home, finally, my relationship was in tatters. I went to the GP, opened up about my problems. I was diagnosed with depression at that time, probably undiagnosed my entire life, basically. And my GP was very kind and offered to prescribe me a codeine reduction plan as a kind of detox, which was, lovely of him, but I never once reduced. The second I picked up those tablets from the pharmacy, I took all the strips. So it was around this point that my mum became my kind of dealer. So just for a bit of background, she can be a lovely person, but she's got her own problems. So she was prescribed morphine for a bad back, quite a lot of it, Oromorph, Zomorph, anything, and she could get it like that. So in return for being at her beck and call, and to the further detriment of my relationship with my girlfriend, she'd give me anything I wanted, as long as I did what she said. I'd do anything in order to keep the withdrawals away. And at this stage, even a year on, I was no longer enjoying it. I was taking it just to try and keep up appearances and to feel some sense of normality. I then started experimenting with other prescription medications because my opiate tolerance was sky high. Started using diazepam, amitriptyline, pregabalin, gabapentin, anything else that might try and amplify the effects of the opiates I was taking, just to help me reach oblivion, which I wanted to reach. So still thinking that I could stop whenever I wanted, still minimising how much I was taking and lying to anyone who dared or cared enough to be concerned about me. I started working as an operating department practitioner at Huddersfield Royal Infirmary. Pretty soon, as you can imagine, the pressure of the role and the effort required to try and conceal my issues proved too much, and I was forced to take 2 months off sick. It was at this point then that I sought help from, it was Chart at the time, in Huddersfield, but I still refused to engage. I only came to get a prescription, and I used that prescription to plug the gaps in between when I could get hold of morphine or any other medication. Less than a year after I started the ODP job, the Operating Department Practitioner job, that I'd worked so hard to get, 3 years of uni, placements, things like that, I was told it'd be best if I didn't continue in the role, in the nicest possible words. I just bought a house with my girlfriend. The mortgage was built around our 2 fairly decent wages, but there I was, unemployed and in the depths of a deep depression. Driving back home from that meeting with the staff at the hospital was the longest drive, thinking how I'm going to tell my girlfriend that we've got this house now. I'm going to end up on benefits, I can't pay it. Even then, I still didn't engage fully with the services on offer. But after a bit of coaching and having weekly therapy sessions and finally working out the right antidepressant levels and anti-anxiety medication levels, I was finally ready to admit, without any ifs, buts or maybes, that I did have a problem and I needed help. So, from May 2018, my life began to change. I started attending the groups. I started to only take my prescription medication, my Subutex. I talked, I shared, I attended every key work session, and slowly things improved. And I mean slowly, because as much as we want it to be, there's no singular light bulb moment, just a series of small, almost unnoticeable changes to the mindsets and ways of thinking. I recently spent 4 months in an inpatient detox and a residential rehab. I spent my 28th birthday in there, celebrated my 28th birthday in there. It's been difficult. I've had to compromise and accept lots of things I didn't think I could ever accept. But I can finally see light at the end of the tunnel. I know this isn't the end, and I know it's part of a lifelong journey. I can't get complacent. But I know that with all the tools I now have and the mindset I now possess, I have a real shot of clawing back the life I thought I'd lost, and maybe even better. I don't want too much. I want to get married. I want to do everything possible to make it up to the woman I've loved for the years of torture I've put her through. I'd like to have children who will be loved and will never want for anything. I want a job that I can be proud of. I want to repay the trust and the faith that my girlfriend's parents have placed in me. I want holidays free from the fear of withdrawals. I don't want to be tied to a pharmacy constantly, thinking when I'm going to take my next dose. And it seems obvious now, but when you are in the depths of addiction, it's hard to imagine a life without your substance of choice, because for so long it becomes your only purpose in life. Maybe why it was so attractive to me. It was a singular focus. It gave me a reason to get up in the morning. It's almost impossible to imagine anything else filling the void at that time. I'm sure you've heard all the cliches and jargon over and over again, but it is only once I accepted that things were unmanageable and I engaged with the services and support available that things began to improve for me. It does require a multifaceted approach. You need to take steps to address your mental, physical, financial, spiritual health almost simultaneously. You need to change and address every aspect of your life. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And once these steps are in place, it limits that fear of the void left behind by becoming abstinent. It assists that paradigm shift in mentality from what am I going to do without my substance to I can do whatever I want without my substance. So just one more thing I would like to say. The best phrase I ever heard that really got me through detox, that got me through the sleepless nights and the restless legs and the nausea and the pain that came with it, is the statement that this too shall pass. I remember going through all the stages of the grief process while I progressed through my own recovery, because it was a huge part of my life for so long. It feels like a bereavement. And that prospect of losing the one singular purpose and reason for being is terrifying. But when you engage, when you attend classes, when you connect with your peers and you open your hearts and minds to new ways of thinking, you realise it can be done. And yeah, thank you for listening. Sorry it dragged so much.
My personal journey of recovery. The dregs of a can of lager or cider from the night before. Not knowing what I had done, feeling suicidal. People around me talking, but I wasn't listening. Days gone by, but not acknowledging time. Days, weeks blending together. Stress was building up in my own mind, not to mention my loved ones around me. Got to my breaking point after many arguments and disappointed faces. I sat on a tree trunk talking to somebody that I know, telling them that I could not talk at home, unsure how to speak to my loved ones. I was upset, angry and confused. I could not do this to the people I love. Nervous and embarrassed and afraid of the consequences of what will be said. I should be allowed to drink. I don't have a problem. This is how I felt. Still angry at myself, I decided to ask for help. Rang a number, but I didn't get help from that. So I got pissed off. What did I do? Straight away drink. I looked online for help, found Change, Grow, Live. I thought about this for a couple of days. I told my wife I was doing my own thing, going to town. She already knows. Pub visit would be involved. I regret straight away that I've caused disappointment. Although still drinking, I took a walk to see where their offices were situated. In my mind, I'm thinking that I have done what I didn't want to. I have followed in the footsteps of my dad in his last few years of life. His life was filled every day with drink. Paid his money and straight away to the shop for a case of beer. 11:50 at night, walk into the bank machine to pull out more money and straight away more booze. What have I become? With this demon in my mind, I was copying his behaviour. I would say I have a bigger problem than that. Drink had taken over my life. Now back to me. Do I have to do this? I left for town, being nervous meeting people. Individuals discussing my drinking were shocked at the levels of drinking. They tell me today's safe to continue drinking slowly, decreasing what I drink each day. I think, how the hell can I tell this at home and say I still have to drink? I begin to try and cut down the amount I'm drinking, thinking, all right, how am I helping myself? So I stop, straight stop. Ended up in hospital 2 days because of shock to my body. I'm all the time in fear. What could have happened? What risk I took? Out of hospital, I returned to meetings, groups and key worker meetings. I'm in different groups now. For nearly five months, yes, I feel nervous as hell still. My first few meetings, I was judgmental of it all. Oh, strangers. I'm watching them as they watch me. Your emotions change, views change. Yeah, it's hard. Nobody said life is easy. I made this choice. I made the choice to drink. My decisions in life are mine. Yes, I have not prioritized myself in the past. That was me being stupid, being ignorant to those who tried to tell me and help me. Now I can feel better, not worrying what I was like at family occasions. Was I drunk? Did I upset anyone? I enjoy my days and time not feeling blank or numb or thoughts of regret. I am doing this. This is my recovery. It's only the beginning, but it's not an instant cure. There is no cure for this.
Okay, this is a poem that I wrote called Mother. It's about struggling with addiction and the process that goes towards recovery. Piss, poverty, dockers, dirt. Glass baggies, ash, mould. Food, blood, bodies, bottles. Shit, muck, risk, fucked. A sea of landfill and disgust. This is what greets you as you get out of bed. Slept in your shoes because your feet have bled. Crust under feet and black between toes. This is the past that nobody knows. At home it's much different and mother still weeps. The kitchen is tidy and the surfaces squeak. A mother is humble, bliss, unaware. There's a whole world of danger for a child out there, whom she cannot protect because she can't understand. She's not from this world, this dangerous land. Where she lives it's safe, no need to beware, but mother and child, there's something they share. While child is away, they both lay and stare. They both feel pain, for the other is scared. The cycle continues for many more years, constantly hurting and living in fear. The child gets worse, gives in to peers, develops a hatred, hurts those he's near. He lies and deceives to achieve these ends. He can't trust himself, less so his friends. People outgrew him, got families and jobs, but he stayed in limbo while they moved on. The things he had done, and all was for naught. The trust he had broken, and wars he had fought. This life he had made was not all it. He still lay awake and feeling like shit. So deeper he goes and tries to forget, but damage is building and harder it gets. The people are thinning, the silence is loud. He finally notices filth all around. He is disgusted at what he's become. He cannot undo this, but he cannot run. And who is to blame when it's all come undone? He wants to go home, but he cannot return. He belongs here now with the rest of the dirt. And who would still want him after all he has sown? He may as well give up and die all alone. He picks up a razor and cries in the shower, but can't even end it. A pussy, a coward. So deeper he goes, but now he's aware. It all goes to show it gets you nowhere. He hates himself for it, but cannot resist. When the hunger comes calling, he needs to desist. Deeper and deeper, cocaine and reefer, acid and mushrooms and Xanax and sleepers, morphine for pain and ease to feel happy, a small price to pay to no longer feel crappy. But the price had come knocking and it was too high to see. His friend needed help, but where was he? It's no surprise really, they gave him fair warning. Your choice will eventually leave someone in mourning. He didn't even show when they laid him to rest, just stayed in his hole and got pissed in regret. And pissed he would stay till he met a new friend, but he sold him for sex to buy drugs in the end. In fact, he got worse and tried to amend, but God had abandoned the ones he'd condemned. And who was still there to fight in his corner? His own lovely mother, who he'd called a whore. But she still took him back, and she nursed him to health. Through fights and abuse, he put her through hell. But mother endured, she saw good in him still. And now I'm still here, alive and well. I love you, Mum.
I suppose a better start, I mean, kind of, you know, from where it all started for me, you know. I was born in Ireland, you know, kind of in the 70s, and my mum and dad split up in the early 80s. I think we moved to England from Ireland in 1981, and I think my problems started when I was a child. You know, it wasn't the drink and drugs did cause problems, but you know, my behaviour and stuff did. I mean, kind of, and I always felt like a little bit different. I always felt like I didn't fit in. I always felt, you know, kind of uncomfortable in my own skin. Now, leaving Ireland, coming to England in the 1980s, I mean, because, you know, it was pretty hard. You know, there were a lot of troubles going on in Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, and there was a lot of kind of conflict between the English and the Irish. You know what I mean? So kind of I got picked on. I mean, I got bullied. You know, and you know, 9, 10, 11 years of age. I mean, kind of, you know, seeing the older kids, you know, glue sniffing and gas sniffing. You know, so I wanted to do that. You know, because I wanted to seek approval of people, and really that's how it started. You know. You know, my first substance was glue. I mean, kind of, you know, progressed on, you know, from glue to alcohol, you know, cannabis. You know, skip forward a few years, you know, kind of, and I got put in the care systems. I mean, kind of, you know, from a young age, and all the shit that brought, you know, kind of, you know, still experimenting with substances, you know, drink and drugs, and my life of crime continued like that. And I remember I was 16 and I got arrested for some more offences. And I remember my head teacher at the time from the care home I were in, kind of coming to court and saying, well, you know, let him join the army, you know. And I didn't really want to join the army, to be fair. Do you mean kind of, you know? But you know, you would either join the army or go to prison. And I remember joining the army, you know, kind of went off and I joined an Irish regiment and I went to Northern Ireland, did my basic training, this, that and other. And that structure, that discipline, you know, I mean, kind of, you know, people telling me what time to get up, what to do, when to get dressed, you know, kind of worked quite well for me, you know, it did. And when I was in the army, I did quite well, to be fair, you know, I did, you know, I had structure in my life. Now, I drunk a lot and I took drugs when I come home on leave at weekends, you know, and kind of, but that time in the army, do you mean, kind of was all right for me, you know. I came from this structured discipline thing back to the same kids that I hung about with on the same estate, doing the same thing. So it's just straight back into a life of crime, you know. But these guys have progressed, you know. Instead of smoking cannabis now, do you mean, and you know, taking, you know, some alcohol, they started experimenting, you know, with party drugs, you know, ecstasy, LSD, cocaine, you know, and it wasn't really until I got introduced to heroin, do you mean, that, you know, my life kind of spiraled out of control, you know. This happy-go-lucky kid, do you mean, that had quite a social life and quite a fun life, do you mean, kind of, you know, really went into this self-destruct mode, you know, really did. I remember kind of clearly, do you mean, a memory that I've got, you know, there used to be an ice cream van that used to come onto our estate, and we all knew that this ice cream van used to sell heroin, used to sell drugs, you know what I mean, and I used to see all, you know, people going up to this ice cream van, and I said, I'll never end up like that, I'll never do that, you know, and I did, you know, and I did. You know, I kind of, this like little experiment, you know, kind of turned into, you know, destroyed my life, you know. I ended up on heroin, you know, for heroin and crack cocaine, you know, injecting intravenously, you know, into my groins, I mean, for nearly 26 years, you know. It's this kind of little experiment thing, and it took me to some really dark places, you know, it really did, you know. Thoughts of suicide, thought of killing myself, you know, tried a few times, but my behaviour just went kind of, just went mental, it really did, you know, kind of, you know. I just became a product of the criminal justice system, do you mean? I was stuck in a revolving door, do you mean, kind of treatment, you know, reoffending, institutions, you mean, kind of getting released, you mean, and I started it all over again, you know. I didn't really kind of know where help was, or I think at that time I wasn't ready for help, do you know what I mean? I didn't really want to stop, you know. I'd just become used to this lifestyle. I'd resigned myself, do you mean, kind of to dying that way, to be fair, you know, I really did, you know, kind of, and I remember kind of coming out of prison. I'd built my life up again, you know. I wrote all them letters that you do to your mum, I'll never do this again, I'll never do that again, you know, and kind of, you know, I remember the day I got released, you know, I didn't even make it, do you mean, you know, that day, do you mean, without scoring, you know, kind of remember some workers from a treatment centre come and pick me up, do you mean, kind of, you know, from DRR, do you mean, criminal justice teams, just to make sure, do you mean, I got on my script and stuff. I remember getting in the car in Huddersfield and I just said, oh yeah, I'll be back in a bit, and I just chipped and went and scored, you know, and I went into this house, you know, and kind of, it was a crack house, and I was using, and I remember this kid walked in and he said to me, he said, you know, kind of, so I've come looking for you, and the kid looked like I do today, you know, I had a little bit of weight on him. He looked clean, you know, in clean clothes, you know, kind of, and I said to him, I said, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I want to tell you about this program, you know, this thing that you do you mean, kind of, you access this group and you do 8 sessions, you can get a detox. And I thought, yeah, all right, so, you know, foolish or unfoolish, I went home and told my mum, you know, kind of, and my mum heard the word detox. Now, the 4 detoxes that I'd done before that, the 3-4 times that I'd been to rehab before that hadn't worked, but my mum convinced that surely this time, you know, it's going to work. And I remember kind of going into this place, and it was run by the Basement Recovery Project. You know, they're not in Kirklees anymore. You know, they've moved back to Calderdale. You know, and I remember meeting this guy. You know, and he started talking to me about this program, and I thought, you know, I'll give it a go. And it was the first time I'd actually seen somebody actually in recovery actually get well, because where I lived, I didn't see anybody like that. You know, they either died, they went to prison for a long time, or they left Kirklees, you know. They didn't really stay here. And I kind of got involved in this group work program and I kind of started accessing this stuff. I remember I came to a treatment provider in Kirklees at the time called Lifeline, and they were a key worker, she spoke to me in a different way, she had a bit of belief in me and a bit of, a bit of empathy and a bit of understanding. She sat and actually, kind of listened to me. And for the first time, I kind of thought to myself, hang on, I can kind of get well here. I can give this a go, And I remember her, kind of bringing me down to this place to do these groups and supporting me, to get this detox, this inpatient detox. And that's what I did, I had to be taken away from my community, and put somewhere safe to do my detox. And I did an opiate detox in 2012, was the last time, I used a mind and motor neuron substance. Kind of the consequences for me had got that bad, I had no choice but to stop. Somebody said to me once, he said, "Why did you stop, James?" I said, "Well, if I hadn't stopped when I stopped, I'd be dead. Plain and simple." My body were failing me, I had abscesses, I had sores everywhere, I'd contracted hepatitis C, I'd had tuberculosis, I was really, really unwell. But not only the physically was I unwell, it was the mental state, that drinking drugs brought me, kind of stuck in this revolving cycle of criminal justice, using, I just couldn't do it anymore, and I wanted to do anything, and that's what I did, and I got involved with this program, and and it was a behavioural change program, and I got involved in it, and my life started to change, and these guys, introduced me to, mutual aid, and it's what I use for my recovery now, kind of still today, they introduced me to a 12-step program, which was Narcotics Anonymous, and and when I went there, it was like I met people that were just like me, but clean, that wanted to just support me in any way that I could, and I still do a couple of meetings a week now, nearly over a decade later, I still do meetings now because it's what I need to do, to maintain my recovery.
Hi, my name is Alex, and this is the story of my recovery. During the summer of 2016, back when I was an 18-year-old lad with a soft addiction to drugs on the weekend and a little sense of direction in where my life was taking me, I would break my leg so badly in a way that would go on to push my drug addiction to the limit. Looking back now, everything seemed great, partying on the weekend with my mates, sharing great memories. But for me, something was missing. Football. I've always been football mad ever since I was little. For as long as I can remember, all my family have been passionate about football. So it felt only natural to take it upon myself and follow my hometown club, Huddersfield. People say that everyone has their passion in life, that one thing where they can just let go and be at one with themselves, whether it be running, live music, going to the gym, reading. What I'm trying to say is football was my great escape. It was my everything. I couldn't wait to get back playing in September 2016. I've always played for my local side and enjoyed the banter with the lads on the weekend and whatever else followed. But for me, I didn't know that just as the season was about to start, it was about to end abruptly for me. So first game of the season, I broke my kneecap and snapped my ACL ligaments. I was absolutely gutted, coming out of hospital with a full leg cast on, thinking my life was over. I'm hopping about on crutches in absolute agony. Luckily for me, my mates would still come and see me from time to time, as I was unable to get out. A few weeks later, things started to change for me, as me and my mates went to a party and I got offered some ketamine, with the reassurance it would help my leg pain. I would usually take pills and MDMA, but in that moment, I think I just found my new great escape. After this night, I would start to take ketamine majority of the time to help with the pain, as the effects it was having on me were incredible. Things would only get better for me as I planned my first outing for later that year on New Year's Eve. So there I am with my legs stuck in a cast while I'm preparing for the night with a few big lines. I'm making sure I'm having enough for the night to top myself up. It was magical, being in such a euphoric state of mind, pain-free, to be experiencing being out again with my friends. Who could have thought? Not me. Honestly, it felt so good walking into the nightclub. Hobbling, to be fair, I probably looked like a right twat, swaying from side to side, But no one could take that feeling away from me. Seeing people's faces when I showed them my cast gave me and them a laugh, especially when they asked, how the fuck did you make it out? Me and my mates would constantly make jokes about it being the special care. Around January 2023, I consider this to be my lowest point in my life. My life has now hit rock bottom, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse. I am jobless, living in temporary accommodation with a severe drug and alcohol addiction. My mental and physical health has depleted to the lowest it's ever been, and I'm suicidal. At this stage of my life, my heart was empty, and I only had anger to inflict on anyone. If needs be, I would inflict it on myself. Sitting in an empty hotel room at night, locking myself away from the outside world, only appearing to pick my drugs up or to do a quick shop run to restock my booze. Only doing this at night as the voices in my head constantly got the better of me, as I never had the confidence to appear in daylight. I still believe now that the shopkeeper enjoyed my reoccurring visits at 5 to 8 each evening. For me, that's as much social engagement I would get. Many of times, after picking up, I would be filled with such joy and happiness, but for me, it would only be short-lived. Walking back through reception, shaking like a leaf from the constant alcohol abuse and twitching away, eager to get back to my dull and depressing box room, which was my safe space to take my drugs. As soon as I'm back, the 80s style curtains would already be drawn, as I would never let any ounce of sunlight in, as this was my life. I would then proceed on to start doing what I do best, taking ketamine. I couldn't get enough of the tranquilizer that had now become my best friend. Chasing the ket hole had now become my favourite pastime. There would be countless of times during the night I would check to see if the door was locked, constantly checking the little hole in the door to make sure no one followed me back. The paranoia gripped me and has full effect now. If I could try and avoid doing this practice as much as possible by picking up more each time I went out, I would, but it never worked. I just couldn't resist taking them up. It all had to go as the addiction was too strong. These nights would only end one way or another, and that would be me sat there until I'd run out of drink or drugs or ended up in hospital. There were many times during my 4-month stint here that I tried to take my own life, but back then I was never thinking about anyone else but myself. Looking back on it all now, I feel so ashamed and selfish in myself. I was stuck in a rut, a cycle of constant pain, chasing that high to release the pain in turn, which led to more damaging effects with my mental health. I was out of control. Well, deep down, I kind of loved it, to be fair. I didn't listen to anyone though, who was kind enough to give me any support and advice. I felt like I knew everything and that everyone else was wrong, but this massively backfired on me. With being epileptic, there were many times I'd wake up in hospital due to my seizures, as I was constantly forgetting to take my medication. There is one night that sticks in my memory very vividly. That night I had some money, so I thought, fuck it, let's blow it all on what I love most, ketamine. Let's be honest, when an addict gets money, what are they going to do with it? So there I am on my drug and alcohol-induced binge, letting my emotions and the voices in my head get the better of me. Blood streaming down my legs like never before, and whenever I see them scars now, it's a constant reminder of that night. My perspective on life has now changed. I felt like I didn't belong here anymore. It was now time. I couldn't cope with this no more. I sent some messages to my partner explaining the situation and proceeded to take the overdose. My heart finally felt detached completely. Suddenly, I'm in the back of an ambulance on the way to hospital after my partner had called them. I think deep down in me sending those messages were my cry for help that night, and this is what stopped my suicide attempt. Without experiencing this lowest point in my life, I wouldn't be the person I am today. The values I now have as a recovering addict are all based on lived experience. But for me, the main lesson I've learned is to be open and talk about my feelings and my emotions, especially as a man, as we find it so much harder to open up. Thank you.
This is a poem from a father to his son. My little boy with eyes so bright, tiny hands that hold so tight, in his smile a world of joy, for he was my little boy. I watched you stumble, lose your way, chasing shadows, demons became their prey, but through the pain, the hurt, the fight, you found your way back into light. Each day you rise, though bruised and torn, a man reborn, the devil forlorn. I see the strength beneath the scar, a shining soul no longer far. The road was rough, but you stayed true, fighting for the life you knew. And though the past still whispers loud, you stand up tall, and I'm so proud. You've learned that hope's a steady flame, that through the storm you can reclaim a future bright, a heart made whole. With every step you heal your soul. I see the man you're meant to be, not just the boy who once couldn't see. And in your eyes I now can find a peace that fills both heart and mind. See, here's my hand, my love, my pride, for in your strength we both reside. You've turned the page, you've made it through, and now the world's awaiting you.
I started drinking when I was about 14, and I think I did it just to fit in, just loved it. Booze, losing my inhibitions, being able to talk to girls without feeling too shy and nervous. I did that all through my 20s. And I think I've got a bit of ADHD, so I get a bit of a fix from being able to, have some alcohol, beat class clown, the joker, everybody looking up to me and having a laugh, gaining a giggle. But it don't always work, because as you get a bit older and you try to mature, everybody around you has already grown up and you're still there trying to be, the heart and soul of the party. And you have kids with autism, which is a learning curve. I got sober a few years ago, 2 years I did, 2 years and 2 weeks. And then that were difficult, found it really difficult. I went on a stag do and I thought, yeah, I'm going to be in control of alcohol. It's not possible, it really ain't. Full weekend on being class clown again, felt great. But I've been sober for a day now. I did 37 days sober and then went to Spain. I don't know what went wrong. It's just hard. It's tough. People say to you, can't you just drink a little bit? I wish I could. But I start with that one drink, then it's another drink, and then I have to be pissed. I have to get pissed. And then that feeling going to bed, being woozy, just takes everything away. What people probably call pain. And the problem I found with being sober is you then start to think about what's actually in your life. And I'm 51 now. And I'm looking at my dad and he's 75 and he's just sat in his chair watching telly. He's sort of chair-bound, bed-bound. And I think I've got 24 years left. So now I need to get sober. But then equally I'm thinking, I want that drink because it feels great. It takes all that pain away. And the problem being sober is you do look at what's actually going on. Last time I was sober, I stood on a bridge at Saddleworth over the M62. Big drop, definitely not going to survive it. Just don't know why, that's it. Going to end it, call it a draw. And I have had that feeling since. So it's like a catch-22, it's a constant battle. You don't drink, you feel healthier, but your emotions, you can tap into your emotions. And then you actually feel your pain. But if you drink, that numbs that pain. It really is a catch-22. So yeah, I want to be sober. I've been going to a group which really helps, meeting other people. We talk. And I think the problem I find is people that don't have a problem with alcohol don't really understand people that do have a problem with alcohol. I'm hoping I've done 24 hours, and if I can get through this weekend, I'm back on track. I want to be sober because I feel healthier when I'm sober. I go to the gym, I lose weight. I'm more aware of my emotions, I'm there for my kids. And sometimes you just feel as a man you've got to put your armour on to be there for your kids. But the easier bit for me is drinking, numbing the pain and numbing out everyday pressures, I think, of having severely autistic children, as well as running a business and trying to be the man of the house. It's just pressure. But when I am sober, I can deal with it, and I'm sharper and I'm better at business and I'm better with my kids. But there's always that underlying thing there. Alcohol's always there. It's an everyday occurrence. We've got sunshine at the moment. People are in beer gardens. You go home, you want a barbecue, you want a drink. And if I could have that one drink or those two drinks, then that'd be great. But I know I can't. And it's taken a long time to admit to myself that I can't have those two drinks. People have said to me, do you want to be in control of alcohol or give it up altogether? I don't know an alcoholic that doesn't say they don't want a drink. They'd love to be able to have those two drinks. But I've got to get to a stage where I've got to go, I can't have just two drinks. I am an alcoholic, that's the problem. And that's a hard word to say because it's frowned upon. It might be, people have said in past, I am Joker Martin. I joke, I'll joke with lads, I'll have the banter, I'll try and be the leader of the pack. And then when you break through that exterior of me, this is what you see. But this hurts. And I think the other thing in recovery is when you go into a group meet and you're acting a twat, a fool, whatever you want to call it, not everybody sees that bit of why is he acting like that? Oh, he's being disruptive, he's doing whatever. But it's because I'm hurting. Because this bit's fucking hard. This bit's really fucking hard. But I have the drink. I don't get this. And that's the problem. You take the drink so you don't feel the pain. But this is part of recovery. This is what we've got to keep doing. We've got to fight these demons. Yeah, I've got to keep trying to deal with this. Whatever it is, I don't know, but I've got to keep trying to deal with it.
So that was a speech that I wrote and delivered a couple of weeks after I came out of rehab back in 2019, I think it was. And it's been sobering, if you'll pardon the pun, to look back at that I wrote so long ago. I'm approaching my 6-year clean birthday. And in particular, the bit where I spoke about what I wanted, the hopes and dreams that I had. So just touching on them, I do have a job that I love. I work here at Change World Kirklees. I specialise in prescription medication, which, given my background, is my passion. I love it. I love working with people. I love helping people. I love hearing people's stories. I married the girlfriend that I'd put through so much pain. She said yes, which was amazing. The children part wasn't straightforward. It took a couple of years, and that's a whole different story entirely. But I do have an 18-month-old son now called George. I have made it up to my parents-in-law now, mother and father-in-law, or I hope I have anyway. I have been on holidays free of any kind of fear of withdrawals. It's incredible. Sounds so simple, but it's lovely. But yeah, recovery does happen. I gave it my all, and recovery has given me everything I wanted. Thank you for your time.
I now enjoy my life more. I thought before being in the pub, spending money on drink, losing time, thinking this was good, this was fun, this was enjoyable. Now I can use my time productively with family and true friends. I have clear thinking now, no haze, some clouds. I still worry each day, but in a good way. Worrying what to eat for tea, what to feed the cat. Have I asked my daughter what was school like today? Checking how my wife's day has been. Able to take time to acknowledge different parts of my day. I am happy and grateful for the people supporting me on my journey, but still afraid of the future as temptation is always there. Drink is always there, a temptation for anyone who has suffered from addiction. Everyone's addiction is ongoing, it just depends if you take the important steps and ask for help.
You know, today, you know, I look at my life and I sit there and sometimes I pinch myself and I think, how have I got what I've got today? You know, how's my life changed so much? You know, I'm happily married, you know, I've got my own home, do you mean, kind of, you know, I run a business, do you mean, you know, it's like, you know, I sit there, do you mean, with commissioners and, you know, kind of, you know, treatment providers, and I sit there and I think to myself, do you mean, kind of, how have I done this, you know, because, and the simple answer to that is, you mean, you've done this through support, you know, through accessing the treatment services, you know what I mean, you know, going to mutual aid meetings, you know, talking to my peers in recovery, you know, this is the stuff that keeps me well. I only got that because of a combination of things, you know, and somebody also asked me once, you know, they said, you know, well, what was it, James, what was it? And I can't really describe what it was, you know what I mean? It's a combination of things, you know, and people. And I think it all started with that key worker, you know, and the funny thing is, you know, that key worker, I see her quite often. Do you mean, she don't work, she still works in this field, but, you know, I see her quite often and I say to her, you know, you can't believe how much you've changed my life, you know, and I'm forever grateful for that, you know, I really am, you know, my life today is not 100%, it's not perfect, but it's a million miles away from, you know, what it was, you know. I did this thing for the needle exchange, you know, not so long since, and, you know, and the words I used, you know, there's no more despair now. You know, there's no more degradation, there's no more waiting on the chemist to open, there's no more, do you mean, kind of waiting on street corners, do you mean, kind of some drug dealer to turn up, do you mean, kind of, you know, I've got a life today that's beyond my wildest dreams, and when I say that, it's like quite a simple thing, you know, it really is, you know, I don't want all the mad, crazy stuff that people dream about, you know, I just want to kind of live my life the way I do, you know, and that's really, you know, what recovery does for you. You know, but also, what I have to say is, you mean, kind of, you know, my family got to see me clean. My family don't have to worry about me anymore. I remember my mum saying to me when I made amends, you know, because I did a lot of harm to my mum, you know, through my addiction. You know, I did. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, I did. You know what I mean, kind of, and I remember I was making amends, and, you know, and I was trying to say sorry, and she said, "Look, James, all I want you to do is stay clean." You know, my mum got to see me, you know what I mean, clean, you know, because I remember saying to me, you know, I'm waiting on that knock on door, you know, just waiting for somebody to come knock on door and say they found you, you know, in a shed. She didn't have to do that, you know, my family are all right, and that's me.
Prior to going into temporary accommodation, I had started accessing the services of Chart at the time, now CGL in Huddersfield, and very apprehensive at the time, to be fair, but I did believe slightly that it was the right thing for me, but I wasn't sure if it was what I wanted at the time. I was very nervous, wasn't sure what was going to come of it. Started having regular meetings with my key worker every week. Came up with some sort of plan, some sense of direction of where my life would be going. And then it came to the point where we both decided that a detox and rehab facility would be best for me. So then my life was kind of building up to this stage. And then in February, I get the call to say that I will be going to a detox facility in Manchester, the Chapman Barker unit. And honestly, I couldn't believe it after so many years of abuse that I've done to my body. It felt strange in a way. I mean, I know I needed it. Was I gonna miss my old life? Yeah. I mean, but speaking to my family, speaking to my partner at the time, my current partner now as well, I needed to do this not just for me, I needed to do it for them as well, because I wasn't just ruining my life, I was ruining everyone else's life. I'd made so many mistakes, I'd hurt so many people, and it couldn't carry on, it really couldn't carry on. But I soon began to realise that no one can change you, but you can change yourself. And I had to put more than 100% into this. There's much effort, much commitment into this. There's only so much the services can do. You have to be 100% committed. I was so nervous, and then I went to detox. I was like small fish in a big pond, honestly. It was so scary. I got there and it was daunting. I did my 3 weeks in Manchester, and then it felt like I was just getting shipped away to Burnley to do 3 months in rehab. It was away from my family, and you know, felt like a prison at times, but it needed to be like that because I needed that lifestyle. It needed to get back to what I need, like what I used to have. I needed that sleeping pattern back in my life. I need them regular meetings. We all needed to be on that same track. It felt like my life was getting back. I got this chance again, and not many people get this chance, and I was so thankful for it, and I couldn't believe it, honestly. Everyone was so proud of me. I didn't know how to handle it, and now I can proudly sit here today and happily say that I'm 2 years and 2 months sober. And this, I continue day in, day out to practice my sobriety. And I wouldn't be here, and now I can sit here and I give back to CGL. I'm a volunteer. Without their help, their commitment to helping me, I wouldn't be here today. So I just wanted to give back to them for everything they've done to me. And I just feel such a better person. So thankful. So I really hope this inspires anyone who's watching, who's struggling, to go seek help, because it's the best thing that you'll ever do. I really appreciate it. So thank you for listening to my story.
So I've been working behind the scenes on this film, and I thought it would be great for me to share my experiences while working on the film. The stories that I heard have deeply impacted the way that I see the world. I used to think that heroes were footballers, rock stars, superstars, even emergency service workers. But actually, filming this film has completely changed my opinion on life. The people that you have heard, the everyday people, they are the heroes. Having to live through the trauma and the lives that they have and come out the other side, and not only come out the other side alive, but come out the other side thriving and striving to help others who are in similar situations to themselves. That's the most heroic thing I think I've ever heard.
My name's Tom Fitzsimons. I'm an alcoholic and I'm 17 and a half years sober.
I'm Liam Smith. I'm a prescription medication addict and I am 6 years clean.
Hi, my name is Richard. I am 8 days from being 6 months sober.
Yes, hi guys, my name's James. I'm a grateful recovering addict.
My name's Alan, I'm an addict and I'm 7 years clean.
My name's Martin and I'm 24 hours sober.
Hi, my name's Alex. I'm a recovering ketamine addict and I'm 2 years and 2 months sober.
Thousands of people every year come through the doors of Change, Grow, Live throughout the country. Today is a call to action. The men in your life, the fathers, the sons, the uncles, the nephews, the brothers, the friends, if they're struggling, encourage them to watch this film. Encourage them to talk about recovery. Listen to their story and encourage them to walk through the door at Change, Grow, Live or any other drug and alcohol service within their city.
I know that I'm the one to blame, 'cause I couldn't bear to stand the pain. I took the pills and lost the game. Now every fucking day's the same. Oh no, here we go. How I wish that things could just be better. Why's this pill I swallow taste so bitter? And all my days, the days just drift away. And how today just feels like yesterday. And I'm afraid that this could be my life. No job, no hope, no kids, no wife, no life. And I'm sat here in this pharmacy on show for all the world to see. And I'm pretty sure that they all know that I can't leave, that I can't go until it's gone. But did it go so wrong? But how I wish that things could just be better. And why's this pill I swallow taste so bitter? And all my days, the days just drift away. And how today just feels like yesterday. And I'm afraid that this could be my life. No job, no home, no kids, no wife, no lights. So 3 months down in rehab done, there's hope again where once was none. And even though I've had no sleep, my body aches, head's on repeat. I see it's where I need to be. And now I know that things can just be better. And I want her to know that I'm not bitter. And all my days, the days are here to stay. And how today is bright, no tears, no grey. So suddenly the clouds roll and it's clear. For you and me, this year could be our year.